I am 104 years old, and as I sit here in this pristine white uniform, the same kind of uniform I wore when I was a young man with fire in my belly and a heart full of reckless courage, I want you to look at the Medal of Honor pinned to my chest. You see a hero, you see a legend, you see a man who survived the impossible. But I am going to tell you a secret that the history books won't mention and the politicians will never whisper in public. In the spring of 1942, in the dark, oil-slicked waters of the Philippines, the United States Navy didn't call me a hero. They called me expendable. Do you know what that word actually means? It means you are trash. It means you are a piece of equipment that is expected to be broken and discarded. It means that your life and the lives of the 32 boys under your command are worth less than the plywood boats you are sailing in. They sent us to die. They shook our hands, gave us our orders, and looked at us with the eyes of men who were already attending our funerals. If you're under 50 and you think you know what sacrifice or grit means because you've had a hard week at the office or someone was mean to you on the internet, I want you to lean in close. I want you to smell the ghost of diesel fuel and salt water on my breath, because I am the last witness to a suicide mission that changed the world. And I am here to tell you that the freedom you are currently wasting was paid for with the lives of boys who were told they didn't matter. In March of 1942, the world was ending. The Japanese had swept through the Pacific like a tidal wave of fire, and we were trapped on the island of Corregidor. We were starving, we were diseased, and we were surrounded. General Douglas MacArthur, the great commander, he was stuck there, and the high brass in Washington decided he was too valuable to be captured. But they couldn't send a submarine, and they couldn't send a plane. So they called me. I was a lieutenant back then, commanding Squadron 3. We had 4 PT boats, thin-skinned, wooden toys held together by spit and prayer. They told me, "John, you're going to take the general, his family, and his staff through 1,000 miles of Japanese-controlled ocean to Mindanao. You're going to do it in the dark, through minefields and blockades." And then the admiral looked me in the eye and said the words that have haunted me for 84 years. "You aren't expected to make it back, Bulkeley. Your squadron is expendable. Just get the general to safety, then find a place to die." That was the American dream I was living in 1942. I wasn't fighting for a brand or a lifestyle. I was fighting because I had been told my life was a forfeit. I remember the night we left, March 12th. The darkness was so thick you could feel it against your skin. I stood on the bridge of PT-41 and I looked at my boys. They were 19, 20, 21 years old. They were kids from farms in Kansas and factories in Detroit. They knew. They saw the look on the officers' faces. They knew they were being traded like pawns on a chessboard. But do you want to know the difference between my generation and yours? We didn't ask for a safe space. We didn't complain that the mission was unfair or toxic. We just started the engines. We filled those wooden boats with extra fuel drums, knowing that one spark from a Japanese bullet would turn us into a bonfire in the middle of the ocean. We were sitting on 1,000 gallons of high-octane suicide, and we sailed right into the teeth of the enemy. I remember the sound of the Japanese destroyers, massive steel-plated monsters that could have crushed us like eggshells. We had to weave between them in the fog, our engines muffled, our hearts beating so loud I thought the Dutchman could hear them. Every time a searchlight swept across the water, I felt the cold hand of death on my shoulder. I wasn't a hero that night. I was a man who was terrified that the 32 boys I loved were going to die for a general who didn't even know their names. We sailed for 2 days and nights through hell. The waves were 15 feet high, crashing over our tiny wooden decks, soaking us to the bone. MacArthur was seasick, lying on the deck of my boat covered in a tarp. Here was the most powerful man in the Pacific, and he was at the mercy of a 20-something kid in a plywood box. I remember thinking, if we hit a mine right now, history ends. But we kept going. We ran out of clean fuel and had to strain the garbage at the bottom of the tanks through our own shirts just to keep the engines coughing. We were expendable, remember? Nobody was coming to save us. No rescue planes, no backup. Just 4 little boats against the entire Imperial Japanese Navy. When we finally reached Mindanao and handed MacArthur over to the planes that would take him to Australia, he looked at me and said, "You've taken me out of the jaws of death." He got the headlines, he got the glory, he got the famous "I shall return" speech. And me? I went back to the fight. I went back to the water with my boys, knowing that we were still expendable. I want to tell you about a boy named Miller. He was my gunner. He was 20 years old, and he had a girl back in San Diego he was supposed to marry in June. A few weeks after the MacArthur mission, we were in a firefight with a Japanese cruiser. A shell hit the deck, and Miller was riddled with shrapnel. I held him in my arms, his blood staining my uniform, and he looked at me with those wide, terrified eyes and asked, "Captain, did we win? Was it worth it?" I told him yes. I lied to him. I told him he was a hero. But as I watched the life drain out of him, I realized that the victory didn't matter to Miller. The glory didn't matter. What mattered was the life he was never going to live. He died so you could sit in your climate-controlled houses and argue about things that don't matter. He died so you could have the luxury of being offended. Every time I see a young person today acting like the world owes them something, I see Miller's face. I see the face of a boy who gave everything to a country that told him he was expendable. You are living in a house paid for with the blood of boys who were told they were trash. Don't you dare forget that. People see my Medal of Honor and they want to touch it. They want to take photos with it. They think it's a trophy. But let me tell you what this medal feels like. It feels like Miller's blood. It feels like the cold water of the Pacific. It feels like the 75 years I've lived while my friends stayed 20 forever. I am 104, and I have spent every single day of my life wondering why I was the one who got to grow old. Why was I the one who got to see my children grow up and have grandchildren? I wasn't better than them. I wasn't braver. I was just lucky. And that luck is a heavy burden to carry. I've kept this silence for a long time, but I am breaking it now because I see a world that has become soft and ungrateful. You think freedom is a natural right, like the air you breathe. It isn't. Freedom is an artificial environment created by men who are willing to be expendable. If you don't find your grit again, if you don't find your gratitude, you are going to lose it. And once it's gone, it takes another generation of expendable boys to get it back. War is not a movie. There is no music. There is only the smell of burning oil, the taste of salt, and the sound of a 19-year-old boy crying for his mother. I spent my youth in the middle of that nightmare so you wouldn't have to. I led a suicide mission because I believed that some things were worth dying for. But today, I look at America, and I wonder if you believe anything is worth living for. You are addicted to your own comfort. You are terrified of being uncomfortable. You've become a nation of spectators, watching your own decline on a 5-inch screen. My warning to you is this: the world is still a dangerous place. The sea wolves are still out there, and they don't care about your feelings or your identity. They only care about your weakness. I didn't survive 1942 to see you surrender your spirit to convenience. I didn't survive a suicide mission to see you kill yourselves with bitterness and division. I remember the day I came home, the parades, the cameras, the heroes' welcome. They called me the Sea Wolf. They put me on the cover of magazines, but every time I looked in the mirror, I didn't see a hero. I saw a survivor. I saw a man who had left his soul in the Philippine Sea. I spent decades waking up in a cold sweat, hearing the roar of the PT boat engines and the whistle of the shells. I never told my wife. I never told my kids. I just wore the uniform, pinned on the medals, and played the part. But now, at 104, I am done playing. I want you to know the price of your Tuesday afternoon. I want you to know that the man who saved MacArthur was a scared kid who was told he was worth nothing. That is the reality of the American story. We are a nation built by the expendable. We are a nation built by people who were told they wouldn't make it, but who did it anyway. I see you kids with your burnout and your mental health days. I want you to imagine not having a day for 4 years. I want you to imagine not knowing if the next wave is going to bring a torpedo or a shark. I want you to imagine being 22 years old and having the responsibility of 30 lives on your shoulders while your own government has already written you off. That is what grit looks like. That is what duty looks like. It isn't something you find in a self-help book or a podcast. It's something you find when you realize that there are things more important than your own life. I am 104, and I am the last echo of a generation that understood that. When I go, that memory goes with me. But I am leaving you this warning. Don't let your comfort become your coffin. Don't let your safety become your cage. You were born to be brave. You were born to be a sea wolf in your own life. Stop waiting for someone to save you. We saved ourselves in 1942 because we had to. You have to save yourselves now. The medals mean nothing if the country they represent has lost its way. I've seen this country at its best, united, fierce, and selfless, and I've seen it at its worst. Right now, we are teetering on the edge of something dark. We are so busy hating each other that we've forgotten that we are all on the same wooden boat, and the water is rising. If we hit a mine now, there won't be another John Bulkeley to pull us out. You are the captains now. You are the squadron. Stop bickering over the small stuff and start looking at the horizon. There are destroyers out there that you haven't even noticed yet because you're too busy looking at your own reflection. Wake up. Be worthy of the sacrifice Miller made. Be worthy of the youth I gave up. I am 104 and I am tired. I am ready to go home and see my boys again. I'm ready to tell Miller that we didn't waste it. Don't make me a liar. I want you to imagine just for a second, standing on the deck of a PT boat in the middle of a typhoon. The wind is screaming. The boat is bucking like a wild horse, and you can see the silhouette of a Japanese cruiser 300 yards away. You have 2 torpedoes left and your engines are failing. You know that if you miss, you're dead. You look at the guy next to you and you don't care about his politics or his religion. You just care that he's holding his station. That is the America I know. That is the America that won the war, and that is the America that is disappearing. You've traded that brotherhood for a digital shadow. You've traded that courage for a safe opinion. It breaks my heart. I'm a decorated hero, but I would trade every medal for one day where we felt like we were all in the same boat again. I'm 104 and I'm signing off. My watch is over. I'm going to go sit on the porch and wait for the sun to set. I'm going to think about the boy Miller and the 1,000 miles of water we crossed in 1942. I hope you think about it too. I hope you think about the price of your freedom every time you're about to complain. I hope you realize that you are the legacy of a suicide mission. What are you going to do with that legacy? Are you going to build something, or are you just going to consume? Are you going to be a sea wolf, or are you just going to be expendable? The choice is yours, but choose fast. The tide is coming in, and the horizon is closer than you think. Thank God for one more day. Now go make it count. For Miller, for me, for the country that sent us to die but accidentally taught us how to live. Goodbye, and God bless. I can still feel the vibration of the engines under my feet. It's a feeling that never leaves you. It's the feeling of power and danger and purpose. I wish I could give that feeling to you. I wish I could show you what it feels like to truly matter, even when the world says you don't. You are not expendable unless you choose to be. You are not trash unless you live like it. You are the heirs to a miracle. Live like it. I'm 104 and I'm finally going home. I hope I did you proud, and I hope you do us proud too. It's a beautiful world if you have the eyes to see it. Don't go blind with bitterness. Keep your eyes open, keep your heart open, and for God's sake, keep the watch. I remember the night MacArthur stepped off my boat. He looked at me and he said, "Bulkeley, I'll never forget what you did." He kept his word. But the world forgot the other 32 boys. They forgot the mechanics who worked on those engines with no spare parts. They forgot the cooks who fought as gunners. I am here to remember them. I am here to be their voice. They weren't expendable. They were everything. And you are everything too. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise, but being everything comes with a price. It comes with the responsibility of being brave. It comes with the burden of being free. Carry it well. Don't let the fire go out. The medals are lead, but the memories are gold. Tommy, Miller, Leo, I'm coming home. I've lived long enough for all of us. I hope I told the story right, and I hope they heard me. It's a long way from Corregidor to 2026, but the ocean is still the same, the storms are still the same, and the need for sea wolves is still the same. Be the hero of your own mission, even if they tell you you're expendable, even if they tell you you won't make it. Sail anyway. That is the American way. That is the only way. Goodbye, America. I've loved you with everything I had. Now it's your turn to love her back. I can see the stars now. They're the same stars I used to navigate by in the Pacific. They haven't changed, but I have. I'm not a lieutenant anymore. I'm just an old man who survived a suicide mission. I hope you find your own mission. I hope you find something worth risking everything for, because if you don't have something worth dying for, you don't have anything worth living for. I found mine in 1942. I hope you find yours today. Thank God for one more breath. Now go make it count. The watch is over. I'm going home. 104 years and it feels like a single night at sea. Make your night matter. Goodbye. I've had a lot of medals pinned to this uniform, but the only thing I'm taking with me is the memory of my friends. They were the real heroes. They were the ones who stayed young so I could get old. Don't waste the years they gave you. Don't spend them in anger or fear. Spend them in joy. Spend them in courage. Spend them in gratitude. That's how you honor the expendable. That's how you keep the promise. I'm 104 and I'm ready to rest, but I'm resting with the hope that you heard me. I'm resting with the hope that you'll wake up tomorrow and realize how lucky you are to be here. 104 years, thank God for every second of it, even the cold ones, especially the expendable ones. They made me who I am. Goodbye.